Well, hello everyone and welcome to Ionan's Edge. Today I'm going to show you an apex knife. This is the Artisan Xcellerator. Basic specs on this knife: AR RPM 9. We got a stone-washed blade, drop point with a big belly. I'm going to call this a drop poon. All right. Thumb hole deployment on this knife. Really nice. We've got liner lock here, full scales on both sides, no real milling on this knife at all, so nothing to take any weight out. It's meant to be a big chunky knife. A liner lock with ceramic bearings. We've got textured, contoured G10 scales and a milled pocket clip with the Artisan logo on it. There is 3 5/8 inches of usable fine edge on this knife. We got a scale length of 5 inches, a tip to tail length of almost exactly 9 inches on the dot, and a weight of 6.05 ounces on my digital scale. Impressions and likes. First off, this is a pretty cool big knife. It's a pretty interesting design, right? Not something you see every day. There's plenty of belly on the blade down here, which I really like. I'm a fan of having some belly on these kind of blades. And it's a solid cutter too. Obviously, being an apex knife, a loaner knife, we don't get to spend a lot of time with these. I didn't, but I did actually get to go out and cut a little bit with it in the garage just to test it out. And it does cut really good. My favorite cutting position was this one. So enough about that. There is good texturing on the G10, as I mentioned before. There's jimping up here on the spine, which is really nice if you're holding it in one of these positions here. Feels pretty good. So you've got that. You've got a really nice usable milled pocket clip that's pretty long. So you're only talking about having about this much of the knife sticking out of your pocket, which is pretty cool. I dig that they decided to go with a nice milled clip on this. I think it fits this knife. I might have gone a little bit longer with the clip, but well, that's minor. So overall, you know, you've got a great action on this knife as well. Yeah, even if you're not good at flicking, the blade is so big, it just wants to go out there. You don't even have to flick it very hard, and the knife just wants to deploy. And it's so big, it just drops closed with some authority. So, got a little focus issue there. There we go. But you can see, really nice fit and finish on the knife. Everything looks good. They did a really nice job. We've got some bead blasted brass in the back. And I'll get to that later. I believe that was done for balancing purposes. So that looks really nice. You got a place there for a lanyard if you so desire. But looks good. All the hardware looks solid on it. Got this nice brass pivot ring collar on there as well. That looks fantastic. So, are there any issues with the knife? Oh, I was going to show you balance. The brass on the back of the knife creates a pretty darn well balanced knife. This is a big, chunky, heavy knife, and look where it balances out, right behind the pivot. Pretty much, there you go, right where I like it, right here, right behind the pivot. So, good balance to this knife. Let's talk about issues and dislikes, though. So, ergos. So, the ergos on this knife are not bad. There are 3 distinct hand positions. There's a rearward hand position back here, right? If you have really big hands, you're probably going to like this position, because it still puts plenty of knife out in front of you, and it probably put your thumb right here on the jimping, right? You can move up a little bit more to this position here, right? And then you can also kind of pull forward and get up here on what I call the drop poon, right? The harpoon part of the blade, and really just choke way up on the knife like this. And for me, this one felt the best. Right? This position here is where I found myself doing most of my cutting. It is a bigger knife with a big belly blade. So, you know, you could see this position being the most useful. What I kind of don't like about the ergos being a little spotty is when you're back here, it's kind of you kind of feel like you have to search around to get your hands in just the right spot, because there is only space for 2 fingers, so you got to be right there. And then all of these choils are big and generous, but boy, they are really big. Like, I have large glove size hands. This knife tends to swim a little bit. And then this back position, the clip becomes a little bit of an issue. If you move up into this position here or into this position here, the clip kind of misses your hand for the most part, sets in that fatty part, so you don't really feel it. So the ergos for people with small, medium, or smaller size hands are going to be a little tough. I have large glove size hands. I felt it didn't really quite fit me. I felt like even up here, there's some spots on the knife like there where my finger kind of wants to set here instead of set up here. So again, the ergos might be one of those you're going to have to hold it or try it type of things before you know if you'll be happy. I think people with large and extra large hands and extra big fingers will probably love this knife. They'll really like the hand positions and the fact that it's got a reasonably thick spine, and it's a pretty big knife overall. And then the other final thing for me was that even though the pocket clip works really great, the knife carries big in your pocket. When you put it in your pocket, you're going to notice how wide and thick it is. And then the other thing too is that I found that at times the pointiness down here of this end, when I would sit, sometimes this would dig into the side of my leg. And that kind of made me not really like carrying this knife as much. I didn't get a ton of time with it, but I could tell after just a couple of carry sessions that this wouldn't be a knife that I would probably want to EDC myself. If you're a bigger guy with big pockets, I think you might really love this knife. Great action on it, great fit and finish from Artisan. I love the brass spacer in the back to kind of balance off the knife. It's almost perfectly balanced, so it does feel really good in hand. But again, the ergos are going to be hit or miss depending upon your hand size. Okay, let's show you some size comparisons. I'm going to start with the smaller knives first. I'm going to start with a knife a lot of people know. This is the ZT-0562 tie. It's basically ZT's version of a hinderer. And you can see how big that is. This knife is actually a good bit larger than the hinderer. You go in both positions so you can kind of get a feel. I think that's a little more accurate representation. There's the hinderer and there's the Xcellerator. Let's show you another knife that's wildly popular in the knife community. Let's show you it next to Spyderco's Shaman. Here's a Shaman for you so you can get an idea of how big that is. Width-wise, thicker than a Shaman as well. Thicker than the ZT-0562. And then now let me show you a knife I think fits right in line with this. If you are a big knife fan and you've held or you know how big the ZT-0308 is, which is what this one is. This is my ZT-0308, which was a gift from a good friend in the knife community. And here is the Xcellerator next to it. So you can kind of get a feel. We'll swap these around so you can see them from both angles. You can kind of get a feel for how big this knife is. This is a big knife. It's longer than the 0308 in handle length. It's about the same length from pivot to tip as the 0308, and it is definitely a little thicker than the 0308. The 0308 is a little thinner knife. It does not feel small in your hands. This one feels thin back here, but is thicker in overall width. So I think those are some good comparisons for you to kind of see that this is a full-size knife. This is in the larger end of the spectrum as far as size goes. So if you got big hands, this might be a knife for you. All right, at right around $100, it's going for around $95 on Amazon right now, but it's between $90 and $100 for this knife. I think it offers a good value for users with larger hands looking for a beefy EDC knife with a unique look and feel. There's not many people that are going to take another knife as unique looking as this out of their pocket unless they're pulling out another Xcellerator, right? And while it's not for me, it may, depending on your hand size and what kind of ergonomics you're looking for, it may be right for you. So I'm going to leave that up to the folks out there in the knife community to decide. But there you go. There is the Artisan Xcellerator. As always, I thank you folks for watching my channel. Please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for me if you would. I hope you all have a great day and stay sharp, everyone.